The following story you are about to listen to is from a competition known as an OCT, or an Original Character Tournament. In essence, it is a project where you make a character and try to write a compelling entry against other people, pitting your characters against them in a conflict. As such, this story is going to have some bits of missing context, as the other characters represented have entire backstories to themselves that may not be fully explained due to time constraints. Also, there will likely be many grammatical errors. I do apologize and give you some forewarning. The characters of the Godeater, the Crossguards, Saki, Tenki, Miss X, and the location of the Crossroads all belong to Vashley and the Summer League's organizers. I hope you enjoy this entry. Bloopers at the end. Summer League's Audition, Chapter 7. Nalagram couldn't explain why, but it had been like an extinguished fire coming to life from the last remaining embers. He stepped in time with music that blared in his own head as magic reached freely to him. His cloak billowed freely in the breeze as he skipped, hopped, and danced along the path that had been laid before him. There were screams, of course. Children cried in the streets, women fled holding their infants, and men who thought themselves strong bent over and began retching as he rounded the corner. Most just passed out, falling in place. Some from towers, others in the middle of chores. One wound up face first in a washing board. He was in rare form today. A wicked and mad grin plastered on his face as he swept readily and freely through the flocks of hopefuls and citizens. Bells rang to greet him and guards ran to see him. Guards that were quickly incapacitated by his mere presence alone. He was fine, of course. Having been in the College of Necromancy did have its advantages. One only has to picture the stench from a place called the Flesh Grafting Chambers to understand the day-to-day life of dealing with death. Long had his sense of smell been dulled, freeing him from the consequences of his inconveniences that he struck to the citizens and competitors alike. It was a gift he wished to bestow upon this guardian deity, but she was nowhere to be seen. Nor were the little foxes that he was certain marked her influence. There were, however, undead. Ghosts, specifically, that could not be seen for they lacked the energy to be given form. He, the apprentice of death, would give them a show to remember as the cheers overran the jeers and the fears of the fleeing populace. "You there, young lad!" The necromancer shouted at a nearby floating ghost who was, at best, the back end of ancient, an empty face with a dangling eye turned to greet him. "Who, me?" the ghost asked in a hollow and curious tone. "Yes, you there, lad. You look like you've been here for some time. I am looking for this Godeater. Where might I find her?" Those who were not completely incapacitated looked at him as though he were insane. None could understand him. That had been established some time ago. But they could tell he was talking to someone that was not there by their standards. "Why, sir, she is speaking to the King of the Hollow Crown," the old man stated with what appeared to be renewed vigor. He spun and pointed to a nearby building, tall and red, that looked like a tower. "He has brought his host of undead with him while she tries to contain us at the sacred forest." Nalagram offered a low and dramatic bow, an action mostly hidden by his cloak so as to keep the dreaded source of the smell a secret from any onlookers. "Thank you, kind sir. As a reward, I would like to end your existence in this place and send you to the realm of the dead." "Finally!" The old man threw his hands up in joyous redemption. He floated in the air, his clothes fluttering freely in the breeze. He was then pulled into Nalagram's free hand as the necromancer began to pull magic from the air. The form of the ghostly old man coalesced into a glowing ball that now all those around could see. Nalagram inhaled, and smoke from the orb floated into his mouth. It tasted a bit like marshmallow, if he were being frank. When the ball finally dissipated, Nalagram reeled his head back and looked around. "Behold the chump biscuits! For now I have learned your language, and I speak for the dead. You shall know agonies that you never would have expected, and your god ain't shit! So be warned and stay out of my way, for I have business to attend to." The crowd that had formed a generous circle around him gasped in shock and horror. The locals muttered to themselves, and the guard dare not approach, despite their weapons being drawn. No longer just wielding staves, they had blades at the ready and fear in their hearts. "He is mad!" cried a woman from the back. He will doom us all, sobbed a man near the front who desperately tried to get away.
I'm gonna puke!
I was just a kid. They probably didn't even know what was going on right now. It had been freeing, finally able to grasp the dead and to speak the language of the locals. It seemed as though his boss had finally arrived. Good! Nalagrum had a few choice words he was saving for Baladeth, one of which might have been a thanks, but then the rest were best reserved in private to keep the PG-13 rating of this story. Nalagrum raised a finger and pointed at a very familiar guard who was currently clenching his nose shut as though it were the only thing keeping him alive. When he noticed the finger, he began to quake and shake in abject terror.
You! Go to this sacred forest and tell them of the apprentice's arrival. Do this or I shall take a crap on thine coffee table.
There was a moment of confusion, but the spirit of the threat was there. The guard and several others backed away whilst looking like they were about to Ralph all over the ground. Then, with a clattering of armor and weapons, they took off in the direction of the tower. The townsfolk who had just seen their protectors flee broke what little rank they had and fled. Screams of terror and wails of woe filled the air with their departure. With the roads rapidly clearing around him, the true life of this place came to him. Ghosts floated from the dark crevices of places they were forced to hide to escape the onslaught of the living. They made forms that they had previously been too weak to create for themselves. They floated around him with patient looks in their eyes, each in various states to indicate their method of death, and at their front a prancing cat that looked all too pleased with itself stood proudly. There were 20 in total.
Alright, gang. We got ourselves an audience with an overpaid receptionist named the Godeater. She's got a good reputation, so we gotta make sure this looks classy.
Nalagrom's voice rang out loudly over the mild mayhem of the undead as he clapped his hands for their attention. Though admittedly it was more for the attention of the members of the living that would have been watching. If they could stomach the current state of the area, that is.
I want to see some great energy out there to wake up those old bones before I kick your sorry hides back to the underworld so you can catch some sleep. So we're gonna be doing this in 4/4 time. Anyone good with them, pick up an instrument. Otherwise, just pass me your soul when you think it's thematically appropriate.
One of the ghosts, a younger man with a cleaver stuck in his neck, stepped forward with a hand raised. Do you have a song in mind for us, sir?
Nah, surprise me. We're doing this freeform style. I want to get an idea for what kind of vibe y'all can put out.
Nalgrom gave a dismissive wave of his hand as the fellow stepped back.
Are we really just gonna straight up assault the Godeater?
Another voice, a woman who seemed to have been bundled up as though she were laid up sick. Nalgrom clasped his hands together and gave a nod as his attention turned to her.
Damn skippy we are, and we're gonna do it in front of a crowd.
But she knows everything that happens in here, sir. She's a god, omnipotent. She can walk through realms, she can. All she has to do is look at you and she knows everything you've done and every choice you've made.
She's a trickster, too. You never know what she might have in store for you.
The crowd had gotten riled up. None of them split to leave, however. The air had been more of curiosity than of outrage or even fear. These were people that had known tranquility and peace for years upon years upon years. They had likely seen feats that would make most mortals fall to their knees and prostrate, and had likely seen the status quo stand the test of time.
Have you lost your spirit so quickly? Do you not know who I represent? I am he who serves the Hollow Crown. And if there is one thing I have learned in service to a god, just because you know everything doesn't mean you're prepared for anything. Like sand that compresses and stops pressure from the outside. However, I am here today to provide a different kind of pressure.
The crowd, swayed by the speech, nodded and muttered to themselves in agreement. Their various dangling bits and weeping wounds flailed about, though they seemed unbothered by the affair. After their brief meeting, Nalagrom saw them wielding various instruments. Some he recognized, others he didn't. Either way, it was sure to produce an interesting sound.
Now then, 4/4 time. From the top.
Okay, so there weren't really any bloopers that I could record on this one that were like particularly interesting or anything like that. Like this one is actually a pretty clean recording, but yeah, no, I just wanted to see how you're doing, check in on you. How is everybody? I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're enjoying the videos. I am probably going to be changing the upload schedule a bit. And yeah, to give myself a little more free time. Yeah, have a good day. Goodbye.